In rare cases, a truly terrible performance can actually improve a movie, transforming the mediocrity on display into something so bad that it turns full circle and becomes great in its own right, or at least enjoyable. Join us as we take a look at the dreadful roles that might never win an Oscar, but that actually managed to make a film better. Everyone's favorite flower shop customer typifies the kind of bad acting that people enjoy more than any other.
Hi, doggy.
You're my favorite customer.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
After writing, directing, and starring in 2003's truly inexplicable The Room, a film often described as the Citizen Kane of bad movies, Tommy Wiseau became an industry legend in ways that even he couldn't predict. 15 years after Wiseau made his big screen debut, the actor's bizarre accent, exaggerated delivery, and sheer lack of acting ability have transformed The Room into a cult classic that continues to be quoted by midnight movie fans worldwide. In the hands of anyone else, a script like this would just be bad, but Wiseau's baffling performance somehow elevates these words into a bizarrely hilarious curio that will forever hold a place in Hollywood's Hall of Fame.
You are lying. I never hit you. You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
In the end, Wiseau's performance was so bad that it wound up inspiring an entire award-winning movie. In 2017, James Franco starred as Wiseau in The Disaster Artist, a movie based on the making of The Room, affecting his own inexplicable accent and picking up a Golden Globe for his troubles. That's one of the few times that anyone's been given an award for being good at bad acting. Sometimes a movie deserves every bit of its bad reputation, and 1995's allegedly erotic thriller Showgirls is definitely not great. According to director Paul Verhoeven, however, that was always the intent. Elizabeth Berkley, who starred as Nomi Malone, deliberately pushed her trashiness to previously unseen extremes precisely because he told her to, in an effort to deliver exactly the kind of performance that he felt the script from Joe Esterhaus required.
Well, it ain't right. You got too much talent for it to be right.
Get out of here!
While critics trashed the movie when it hit theaters, audiences have since learned to embrace the ludicrous dialogue and campy acting of Showgirls, holding a particularly special place in their hearts for Berkley and the way she played Nomi. From her cringe-worthy attempts at dancing to that infamous scene in the swimming pool, Berkley's performance has become one of the all-time greats in cult cinema. It's just a shame that her attempts to turn people on ultimately turned casting directors off. In an effort to distance herself from the good girl she played on Saved by the Bell, Berkley wound up tanking her acting career at what could have been its height. After returning to the spotlight with his iconic role in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction in 1994, John Travolta could have done just about anything. Unfortunately, what he decided to do with his newfound glory and millions of his own dollars was produce a sci-fi epic that became one of the most notorious flops in cinema history. Based on a novel written by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, Battlefield Earth became a legendary failure for both audiences and fans. Virtually every aspect of the film was panned, with critics condemning everything from the confused direction to the ludicrous plot holes, but particular attention was given to Travolta's role in the film.
With endless options for renewal, with endless options for renewal, with endless options for renewal.
The longtime Scientologist played Turl, a member of the Cycle, Battlefield Earth's 10-foot-tall, world-conquering aliens who kept man-animals as slaves to turn a profit for a space corporation. Short of twiddling an imaginary mustache, Travolta's pantomime performance went so far over the top that it became the only thing in a movie that was otherwise mind-bogglingly monotonous that was actually fun to watch.
While you were still learning how to spell your name, I was being trained to conquer galaxies.
Despite its now legendary critical mauling, Travolta still maintains that Battlefield Earth is actually an underrated classic that doesn't deserve its bad reputation. He's even claimed in interviews that if he had to do it all over again, he'd still take the role, blaming the media for its negative image. Sounds like he really did want those endless options for renewal after all. In a misguided attempt to recapture the campy magic of the 60s Batman TV show, director Joel Schumacher and writer Akiva Goldsman set the superhero genre back decades with their second collaboration starring The Dark Knight. From its gaudy production values to those unforgettable bat nipples, Batman and Robin has regularly topped lists compiling the worst movies of all time since its release in 1997. Both Schumacher and star George Clooney have even apologized for their roles in bringing the film to life, regretting how Batman and Robin temporarily brought the franchise to an end before it was rebooted 8 years later. However, anyone who's seen the film knows that no apology is necessary. It might have some pretty significant flaws, but it's a movie that knows exactly what it wants to be, and also brought us the campy delight that is Arnold Schwarzenegger in the role of Mr. Freeze.
Show some mercy.
Mercy? I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold.
In a huge departure from the more serious action roles that he was known for, like Terminator and Predator, Schwarzenegger's take on the ice-cold villain took action movie puns to the next level.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Freeze takes great delight in turning every line into a gag, and in hindsight, it's hard to imagine anyone else but Arnie managing to get through any of it without either breaking into laughter or bailing on the film entirely. 1987's big screen adaptation of Masters of the Universe was inspired by the beloved 80s cartoon and toy line, mixing Mattel's story of He-Man and Eternia with elements from unrelated comics by Jack Kirby, the co-creator of the Marvel Universe. Given He-Man's popularity and how much people have turned out to love Kirby's creations in their massive cinematic universe, that probably seems like a good idea for a blockbuster franchise. It was not.
Skeletor, am master of the universe.
Poor reviews and lackluster box office earnings put an end to hopes for a sequel, and even contributed to the imminent closure of B-movie icon Canon Films. But it seems that most people miss the point. Sure, He-Man's ongoing war against Skeletor is clunky and poorly made, but Masters of the Universe also deserves to be celebrated as a campy classic in its own right, mostly due to Dolph Lundgren's performance in the lead role.
I'll never kneel to you. Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Wielding a sword and little else, Lundgren imbued He-Man with a goofy charm that resonated with an entire generation of children who were overjoyed to see their hero on the big screen at last. Using any measure known to man, it's clear that Lundgren's performance will never be considered as good in any objective interpretation of the word, but his portrayal of the character on screen has made what could have been a forgettable toy tie-in into a fascinating cult classic. Like Robin Hardy's original 1973 take on the Wicker Man, the 2006 remake revolves around the search for a missing girl on a remote island. However, unlike the first Wicker Man film, the newer version starring Nicolas Cage omits the horror in favor of unintentionally hilarious comedy, spawning hundreds of snarky reviews from critics and countless more memes from the internet at large.
How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
Viewed purely as a remake of the horror classic, the 2006 version of The Wicker Man is definitely not a good film. After all, the original remains a masterclass in suspense and paranoia, and this new imitation simply doesn't hold up. However, if you're willing to put aside any notions of horror and embrace Cage's bizarre performance for what it is, then the new Wicker Man is arguably one of the best comedies ever made.
What is that? What is it? Oh, no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah! Open my eyes!
It's hard to tell whether Cage played the part for laughs or was genuinely sincere in the role, but either way, his overacting here is truly a marvel to behold. With an animal-like intensity, Cage blazes across the screen, screaming about bees and punching women while wearing a bear costume. There's nothing else out there quite like it, and if the film's box office failure is anything to go by, then there will probably never be anything like this again. It's rather ironic that a movie about a futuristic cop that acts as judge, jury, and executioner has become a guilty pleasure for many. But that's exactly what's happened in the years since Sylvester Stallone brought Judge Dredd to the big screen in 1995.
Drop your weapon! These bloods are under arrest!
The film was originally considered to be a box office flop domestically, and since it lacked the satirical tone and stern, stone-faced scowl of the original British comic book character, it didn't resonate with casual moviegoers or die-hard fans of 2000 AD. For that, fans would have to wait another 17 years. But interest in the property has ensured that Stallone's Judge Dredd will never be forgotten completely. One particular sticking point for fans of the comic was the fact that Stallone took off the helmet and revealed Dredd's face in the movie. This is something that the character would never have done in the source material, and still hasn't in over 40 years of comics. Then again, if Stallone hadn't wanted to get his mug on camera, we would never have received the gift of his hilariously goofy facial expressions.
For Judge Joseph Dredd.
It's a lie! The evidence has been falsified! It's impossible! I never broke the law! I am the law!
The sheer absurdity peaks at the end of the film, during an argument shared between Dredd and his evil clone, Rico, escalating to the point where both forget how to pronounce basic words in English.
You killed innocent people.
The means to an end.
You started a massacre.
I caused the revolution.
You betrayed the law! Law!
The gibberish that both actors scream at each other has since become immortalized online, thanks to an endless stream of parodies that ensure Judge Dredd will hold a special place in the hearts of cinephiles everywhere. Plus, we got a much more accurate adaptation simply titled Dredd in 2012 that did a far better job of capturing what the character is really all about, making Stallone's cinematic failure a lot easier for fans to take. In the same tradition as the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night in 1964 and the Monkees' cult film Head in 1968, the Spice Girls brought their own unique brand of girl power to cinemas everywhere in 1997, capitalizing on both their record-breaking success and the world's brief fascination with Cool Britannia. Predictably, Spice World broke box office records, and even more predictably, the critics loathed it for the most part. However, even the most hardened journalist must admit that there's something infectiously fun about the film. Sure, there's not much of a plot to speak of, and yes, none of the girls ever made the headlines for their acting ability. But thanks to the bubbly charisma of the stars and a roster of wild cameos that includes Elvis Costello and Meatloaf in a minor role, Spice World continues to spice up the lives of fans everywhere 2 decades on. Spice World even got a re-release in UK cinemas to celebrate its 20th anniversary in 2017, suggesting that the Spice Girls still retain their retro charm. Since Spice World was first released, the girls have gone their separate ways and reunited more than once, but none of that matters while watching the film. Spice World is a bright and breezy time capsule of a unique period in pop music history, one that wouldn't happen without the brash positivity of the girls themselves, each of whom elevate the plot's silly trappings into something undeniably silly yet ultimately engrossing. Every now and again, a movie comes along that defies the odds and fails in every conceivable way. More than any other film on this list, Troll 2 is that movie. From the totally implausible plot to the fact that not even a single troll appears in the film, this 1990 no-budget disaster is a catastrophe in every sense of the word, redefining what the word bad truly means.
Michael?
Yeah?
Who are the goblins?
The story itself follows a family who try and stop vegetarian goblins from turning them into plants, but that doesn't really matter. What does matter is the atrocious performances on display, which helped the film develop a cult following that led to numerous screenings at midnight movie festivals and a documentary called Best Worst Movie in 2009, which chronicled the many problems experienced on set. While it's difficult to pinpoint the single worst performance in Troll 2, the one that's gained the most notoriety over the years comes courtesy of Darren Ewing, whose character reacts in horror at the sight of a woman being devoured by goblins and delivers a line that would become a viral sensation years later.
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me! Oh my God!
Sure, it's a bad movie, maybe the worst movie, but there's no way to watch that clip without having a fun time watching it. And there are plenty of Hollywood blockbusters that can't claim that. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.